This is from the website thewaythetruthandthelife.net. This is February 2nd, 2014. And in 5 days, the Winter Olympics will start in Sochi, Russia. The purpose of this video is to give some insight and show some of the ignorances we have of Russia and the Russian people. I have come to understand something about the Russian people, and I want to share it with you. I married a Russian woman in 2000. In 1997, I taught in Lithuania for the summer. In 1999, I taught in Belarus, and I've taught since 2000 in Russia. I have residence there, and I've lived in Russia the past 14 years, spring and fall. 3 months in the spring and 3 months in the fall, and teaching in the children's library and in my home. The purpose of this video is to share some of these insights that the Russian people have suffered terribly. They suffered under communism, the propaganda that was used, that they're suffering to bring socialism to the world, to build roads, to build hospitals and schools and so forth. Please understand, the Russian people don't understand why they're hated by the non-Russians. And because they suffered and thought they were suffering for these people who now oftentimes hate them. So that's my introduction. I believe that the purpose of having the Winter Olympics at Sochi is to help the West understand that it's an Islamic problem in Russia, not one of the oppression of the communist people. These terrorists have gone and gotten political asylum all over Europe because they were sympathized with, like they're just oppressed by the Russians. It's an Islamic rebellion, Islamic effort that had started with the rape, pillage, and plunder pyramid scheme, theocratic world domination scheme of Muhammad, that this jihad to rule the world. And that's, I believe, why they're having the Winter Games at Sochi, to help the West wake up to the problem. It has nothing to do with Russia. It's a worldwide problem that has existed. It's where the Roma came from. There were over 150 million killed back when the Muslims invaded India. And that's where the Roma came from. They escaped and found safety amongst the Christian farmers. So pay attention to what's in here and get some insight, please. I have a background that has given me these insights, not from reading books, but from spending time in the former Soviet Union, teaching in a UN-sponsored program in Lithuania in '97. It was American teachers going there for the summer to help with spoken English. And the program called Bridges for Education would bring children from 3 of the former Soviet Union countries together, and we would form classes. The purpose of the different countries in Lithuania in '97, it was Lithuanian, Polish, and Estonian. In the summer of 1999, I taught in Belarus with this Bridges for Education. And at the end of the summer, we had a week to excursion around Belarus and the different cities. And one of the main experiences relevant to this was when we were in one of the eastern cities near Poland, and there's been conflict there. I wasn't aware that there was, we were being shown a Roman Catholic Church, and Orthodox Belarusian teacher that was with us didn't want to go in there like it was an evil place, and I didn't understand that. But I came to understand later on that the Russians, Belarus is White Russia, the Russians have been abused by the Roman Catholic lords that invaded, and they took them as slaves. The word slave comes from Slav, and they destroyed the Orthodox church. The Russian communists did too. What the Russians have suffered, the monks, there was a group of monks tortured to renounce Christ and become communists by making them stand out in the freezing weather and spraying them with water as the water froze on them, and they froze to death, and they still didn't renounce Christ. No, the Russians have suffered terrible under communism, and yet the propaganda says, "Oh, we're the saviors of the world. We're sacrificing to bring things to the poor people of the world. The class struggle, hate the rich, hate the powerful." Sounds something like what's going on in America today. At any rate, that was my 1999 Belarusian experience, and I even helped one of the students come to America for her Christmas vacation and visit our home church here and one of our conventions. But she married and now has immigrated, is working with one of the computer companies in California. During this time, I had contact with a Russian lady that was interested in our home churches, and in 2000 I traveled to Russia in the spring of 2000 to meet her, and I returned in late summer of 2000 to marry her, and that's where my experience of Islam started. Hers went back much further. Her people had become home Christians in the 1700s when the Bible had been translated into Russian, and they did not follow the worship of icons and the special fast days. They went strictly by the Bible and met in homes. It was basically family church, and they would make copies of the Bible in Russian, but by handwriting. But they were persecuted for not observing the fast days and submitting to the Orthodox Church. So they were labeled heretics, and many died in jail. That Olga's people escaped to Persia, which is now Iran, and lived there those people stayed there. This is the Malakani. You can look that up in Wikipedia. There was spread out through the world. There are not that many of them now. But at any rate, that was her background. And then they, after, in the 1800s, Russia had rescued Armenians from the Turkish murdering. That was an earlier time, not the First World War murdering, but back before that. There were many times the Turks were invaded what was the Byzantine Empire, the land of the seven churches. murdered Christians as they went. But by the way, they didn't murder the Roma because the Roma converted from Christianity to Islam. But August's people got permission from the Lord. The Tsar had placed land over the repopulation where the Turks had murdered everybody. And they petitioned from Persia, and this Lord let them come and make a Russian village in Armenia, where everybody was given 15 hectares of land. At any rate, there were then, under communist times, Muslims moved in all around under communism, as long as they weren't openly practicing, they were free. And there were Muslim areas all around there before communism, too. Both the Arabic invasions in Azerbaijan and places like that, and the Turkish invasions. At any rate, Olga had this background, and we found fellowship with each other, and the idea of home church built on family love. So I will give you clips, but the point that the video clips to show the various parts that I'm speaking to. But the purpose is to show you that our ignorance of the Russian people, they have suffered. They do not understand the hatred. I understand that the Russians are hated by the Lithuanians, by the Estonians, by the Roman Catholic Ukrainians, because it was the Roman Catholics invaded the Orthodox territories and made the Russians slaves. The word slave comes from Slav. That was the Catholics, Roman Catholics, invading and making slaves out of the Russian people. At any rate, the Russian people suffered terribly from invasions from the Turkmens, invasions from Muslims. The Tartars were not Muslim, that was before, but the same thing, rape, pillage, and plunder. And where they had a wonderful family foundation, it got destroyed. And wherever this type of domination goes on, it leaves a corrupted culture, just like the Spanish culture coming to South America. It was really a Muslim culture, and they dominated the non-Spanish, devastated them, really. And still goes on. They live behind walls with glass on top of the cement walls so that the native people can't crawl into their homes. But that's a whole nother thing. So here's the problem. And it was first brought to my attention. The Russian people are hated because of the domination, not the communism. I had a friend that came out of the Hungarian Revolution. I have a video on Tibor Chesley, and he said it wasn't hatred for communism. It wasn't an anti-communist revolution, the '56 Hungarian Revolution. It was an anti-Russian revolution. When I was in Lithuania in '97, hate for Russians. When I was in Belarus, that was not hate for Russians. The Belarusians are basically Russians. And the problem in Ukraine today is part is Orthodox Russian and part is Roman Catholic. And it was the Roman Catholics that invaded the Ukraine. Ukraine is the heart of Russia. That's where the original capital of Russia was in Ukraine, and one of the czars moved it to Moscow, and then Peter the Great moved it up to St. Petersburg, but that's a whole other story. So the Russians are hated by many people, especially since the domination of communism. The Russian people have suffered so much. Just like when Clinton betrayed Kosovo and gave that Orthodox land to the Muslims that had illegally come across the border from Kosovo, and burned churches and killed Christians, and were part of the Nazi Waffen-SS that killed the Jews and the Roma that wouldn't convert to Islam. That's a whole other story. Here's the point. Russian people empathized with those who were victims of Islam because they had a history of protecting the borders against Islamic invasions and going to the southern Europe, the Balkans, and rescuing them from Islamic invasions. That's why I just finished a video, you can read it on Turkey, where this Turkish preacher is in Moscow saying, join us against the Turkmen. The Turkmen are enemies of Arabic Muslims too. Remember, the Ottoman Empire defeated the Muslim Arabic armies, and they're no friends. And here's this Muslim preacher saying, come on, Russians, join us, and we'll give you Sophia, the holy church that was converted by the Turkmen into a mosque. He said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just pull down those 4 towers. But and you can rename, help us against Turkey, and you can rename Istanbul to Constantinople again. At any rate, that too is another story. Here's the heart of the issue. The Russian people have suffered. The common folks. The communist revolution gained support because it was a women's liberation movement. Engels said that marriage was an invention of the upper class men, that they would have heirs to pass on their wealth and power to, and victimize the women. But so they had the women's liberation, but it was largely rebellious Jews that had rebelled against the Jewish. The rebellious Jews are not killed, they're just rejected by their family. Rebellious Muslims in an Islamic Sharia state are killed, but not the Jews. And the rebellion of what they called the what was it? Europe awakening, as if it's the Renaissance. The Renaissance was an affluence that degraded child care and made a bunch of sadomasochistic and narcissistic, sociopathic. The Jews had wealth. That's a whole other story. The Jews were used as the dominators by a minority upper class over the majority underclass. The Northern Europe, the lords didn't want to teach their slaves, serfs, to read and write, and they didn't want their children to have to be doctors, so the Jews were literate and had university development, and so they used them as tax collectors and doctors, and they didn't even allow the serfs to learn to read and write. Same thing in Spain. The Jews were the enforcers and the rent collectors for the Muslims. When the finally liberated Spain, Turkey, the Muslim Empire, sent ships to rescue Jews, and many went to North Africa, and many went to Northern Europe, where there were Jews, and they carried this resentment of the Roman Catholic Church, which was purging Islam and the Jews who had converted to Islam, and Judaism for its oppression of the Christians under the Muslims in Spain. So they came to Northern Europe with spreading a hatred in the intellectual community, and that was the part of the reason for the Luther rebellion. Contempt for the Roman Church that came from the Jews that were persecuted in Spain for their past behavior while serving the Muslims. That's a whole other story too. But here's these wealthy Jews hiring wet nurses and babysitters, and their children grow up not able to hardly love somebody of the opposite sex, let alone love their children and care for them well. And these children were brought up in affluence, education, but no home love, no family close relationship like a farm family or anything like that. So they rebelled with all this intellectual development, and that was the source of the communist revolution. Hate for the haves by the have-nots. Obama's sowing it here rather than helping people to take care of themselves, giving them the tools to work and letting them, like it says in the Bible, if they won't work, don't let them eat. But that's a whole another story too. But what happened to the common folk in Russia under communism? Their propaganda. And I have, she's dead now, but Olga's cousin had been a building school teacher and then a principal under communism. She loved communism. It was terrible the way they talk about it. Why? Because to the Russian people they were like sacrificing, like Christian saints, sacrificing for the world, sacrificing to bring schools and roads and hospitals and medical care to the common people all over the world. That's why we have to sacrifice, of course. What they didn't say in the newspaper then, but everybody knew, if you don't go along, you might disappear. The KGB would come if you were a dissident and either put you in a mental hospital or send you off to some labor camp in Siberia, which, when you say Siberia, it's not necessarily cold. It runs from very warm temperatures up to almost the North Pole. A lot of it's just forest land that needs laborers to work, whether in the mines or the forests or whatever, but many died there. And many were killed. When I was in Lithuania, I was shown by a former Lithuanian who had been in Siberia, show us around this KGB building in Vilnius. And he showed us the room where they tortured. It was one bishop was killed there. It was a tub. The whole room had a shallow part with a little hub in the middle, and we're talking wintertime with freezing temperatures. And the one they were torturing had to stand or sit on this little hub, and if they fell asleep, they fell into the ice cold water. That was their torture there. But he showed us the little room little building in the back. When they were done, just take them out. That's where they shot them. And one of the main sources of people to execute was the secret police going to Western Europe and abducting people who had escaped communism and that they had something against them, whatever. I don't know all the details, but they did have secret police throughout the free Europe getting people and bringing them for both information and punishment. But that was not anything that the common folk in Russia were told. They were told how wonderful they are, that we're sacrificing to bring socialism to the world, and they were. They weren't told about the oppression and abuse that was going on wherever the communist regimes took hold, the hatred that the Hungarians had for the Russians, not for communism, for Russians, because the Russians were the upper class implementing this communism and supporting the puppet regimes, they called it. So that's basically it. As far as why I have insight into this, some from Olga. In 1915, I think it was, when the Turkish Muslims were chasing and killing Armenians, they crossed the river to the Russian village looking for escaped Armenians. And Olga's grandmother hid one in the potato cellar. It was a trap door underneath the kitchen floor. And he survived. Olga knew him. But they went to the grain tower. They had the tower with stilts so the rats couldn't get at the grain. And went and found an Armenian hiding up in the grain tower and killed him. But so Olga had a lot of personal background that she shared also with them. By the way, Armenians hate Russians still today. There's a lot of but many Armenians go to Russia because they can make a better living. I had an Armenian doctor for Olga in Moscow. They did a good job. They tend to be pretty intellectual, but and even the Armenians can do their service in the Russian military or Armenian, because Russia has protected Armenia. That's a reality. But they still, Olga's family had to get, with the breakup of communism coming, there was so much anti-Russian hatred, and Russian women not safe on the street. Even with man company, the man could be beaten and the woman taken and raped. Really, it's a harsh reality in the clash of cultures. At any rate, Olga, the parents lived there from the grandparents and great-grandparents from the 1800s. But then, with the breakup of the Soviet Union, they were permitted to immigrate back to Russia, and they did. That's how she come to be in Russia. And again, I have Russian residency. Spring and fall, I've had Russian residency. Still do. Now, I'm going to show you some of the clips to give the background information, and I'll put references to both my website, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, and to these videos or information on the internet. Back to this thing about the hatred for the Russians. They don't understand, because the world that they experienced was different. It was the propaganda, and they did experience suffering. And the reason they were told they're suffering is because of their care for other people. So let me show you a few of the things that I've gone through in Russia. By the way, I've taught there in a children's library using the English-Russian parallel version. I don't speak Russian. I'm too old. I learned German when I was earlier enough to get along, but Russian I haven't been able. I learned it one day and it's gone the next. At my age, I'm now 74. But I showed them the value of the Christian Bible with parallel. Here's the Russian and here's the English, and the children can read the Russian first, and then I teach them how to say the English, and they know what it means because they just read it in Russian, and they understood and let me use the Bible to teach Russian for 10 years.
Because there's no better translation between English and Russian than the Bibles, they permit me to use the parallel English-Russian Bible. The students can look on the opposite column from the English and see what the words mean in the Russian. I can't speak Russian, but it works well, and Olga helps.
Крошка сын к отцу пришел и спросила Кроха:
Папа, книга хорошо или книга плохо?
У меня секретов нет. Слушайте, детишки, все о книгах расскажу девчонкам и мальчишкам. Настя любит вышивать.
Где же мне узоры взять?
Ты возьми вот эту книжку, сможешь лучший подобрать. Кате задали доклад.
Что же мне там написать? В этих книгах и журналах фактов я найду на 5.
Этот мальчик любит труд, создает модели.
Где же я чертежи возьму?
В этом вот отделе. Света хоть совсем мала, часто просит маму.
Почитай мне про щенка и про обезьяну.
Я хочу атлетом стать. Так с чего же начинать?
С утренней зарядки и дневного распорядка. Помни это каждый день. Знайте, даже крохи. Книга – это хорошо, а без книги плохо.
Let me insert here how traumatic it was for Olga, 9/11, because we were married in Moscow in 2000. Horrific blowing up of the subway by Muslims at that time. That was one of my wake-up calls.
Shocking experiences I had when I first went to Russia and met Olga and got married. The shocking experiences were people being murdered by suicide bombers. And in the video I have of the wedding, there's nothing about that, but we had to be in Moscow a month before the wedding to sign, and then come back a month later before, and then be married. There's a month waiting period. And while we were there, initially we blew up subway, murdering a whole bunch of people. It was terrible. I'll show you a picture of that horrible scene. But then when we went back in a month and got married, we had to walk through we can walk down under the street to the subway and up on the other side of the street. Big halls underneath. That's common in Russia, to have these walkways underneath the main highways in the cities, in the big cities. At any rate, when after our wedding, we walked through the subway underground with Olga's cousin Ludmila, who had been with us as a witness for the wedding and a helper. But we were unable to take pictures at that scene. That was forbidden. There were pictures of the people who were murdered there, but that they weren't allowing, for some respect out of for the people. But we did take a picture of the background where many of the people had been killed. You could still see the stains that were hard to clean up in the concrete. So that's my introduction to our wedding. Olga was so glad to be able to come to America. She felt such a joy because she had lived in Armenia with the horror, and then they moved to back to Russia. Her forefathers had left Russia in the 1700s when they were being persecuted for being home Christians. So Olga and then moved back to the Caucasus, and there terrorism all over. So when she came to America, she was so thankful to be in a safe place. And then the following year, 9/11, and now with this, seeing Muslims stoning Christians at Dearborn, Michigan.
Here who worked tirelessly on my 2008 campaign. Let's face it, you did not do it because you thought this was going to be a cakewalk. When you decide to support a candidate named Barack Hussein Obama, you know the odds are not necessarily in your favor.
Ruben. Ruben for that. So,
oh yeah. Come on, let's go. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Get out of here. You don't want to get out. You want to jump out or you want to leave? Beat the shit out of him.
Paul, do you understand English?
Your head down. Ah, damn it.
Man, they nailed me with a piece of concrete or something right in the back of the head, man.
That's all you care about.
Oh my goodness, yeah! This is insanity.
Last week died from Allah, worshippers.
destroying entire...
We can believe that if you believe that. We don't need a contradiction for shit. What's stopping them?
You've got to be kidding me with the cops. Keep your eye on this kid in the blue shirt. He's going to whip that stool. Watch that. Watch those kids with those stools they're going to whip. I just want a picture of the kid who throws that at us.
Hey, can you leave?
That glass right there. All right. Put it in the middle. Put it in the middle here. Put it in the middle so they can't use it again. My God.
Okay, I'm an American citizen and I have my rights. There's freedom of religion, isn't there? Freedom of religion. But the New Testament, we don't believe in that. To you, all you guys need to grow up. Video camera me. I don't give a fuck. Did I do something wrong? Fuck you. Hey, America's people. What are you doing here? What's the point of this? Alright, the fuck home. That's what you want. This guy's recording so we can hit you, and then that's what you want. You want to talk about Mexicans? You jumped over the border? Is that what you did? Americans, you jumped over the border, that's how you became. So why are you guys praying like this on the bed? Oh, Lord. Why don't you get on the ground like your prophets? You're Christian. That's what it says in the Bible, you stupid shit. I know more about the Bible than you. You're fucking pathetic, bro. You know how old I am? I'm 18 years old. How old are you, man? And I'm smarter than you.
I can't even point the camera in enough directions to catch a tenth of it.
Yeah, I believe it.
I got you, bro. You tried, go ahead, motherfucker. Fuck you.
No, I think this religion is provocative. I think when they chop people's heads off, that's provocative.
We're moving. We moving?
Yeah, we're moving.
Grab that so they don't keep flowing.
behind you. Get behind you.
It's mine now.
Is that yours? You're a danger to the safety right now.
You guys are just making presents. We're going to protect 17 blocks, and we don't have the manpower. We have 17 blocks of festival to protect. I want to make sure you understand that. Your safety is in harm's way. We need to protect everybody. You realize wherever these signs are, that's going to be the hot spot. But as long as you understand, you do have the option to leave. I just want to make that. You have the option to stay here, right? I hope you understood me. You have the option to stay here.
Look at them turning a blind eye. Look at them walk away.
Y'all are sure out of here. You're not welcome in Dearborn.
Wanna get fucking wrecked? Bitch!
Where are we on? You're back. Oh, okay.
We have the responsibility of policing the entire festival. And obviously, your conduct is such that it's causing a disturbance, and it's a direct threat to the safety of everyone here. Someone could get hurt. You already have blood on your face. One of the festival people, one of my officers, anybody can get hurt. So we're going to start you on.
The problem is, when you're not around, that's when they start throwing things and become a little bit more aggressive than what you see.
Okay, I understand that, and I don't disagree with you. But part of the reason that they throw things on stuff is because you tell them stuff, that enrages them.
In fact, we're not even preaching. So it's obviously the signs. Now the signs are going to be illegal. I mean, we're not even talking. My thing is, if you just have a couple of officers there, that would kind of keep them at bay.
Okay, but then I would have to have a couple of officers in each group that decides to come here to protest.
We're not protesters.
Okay,
if we were protesters, we'd have a tent like Occupy.
Well, we're going to escort you. We'll get you out of here safely.
Well, if we walk out, it's only going to happen after we've walked the route.
You're going to leave now.
We're escorting you that way. We can't do that. Yeah, you're going out that way. It's not your call. We've been very gentle and very, very respectful to you. You are jeopardizing public safety, and you need to understand it's going overboard. We don't have the coverage. Okay, if we protect you and we have two officers that can protect you, it'll work great. It's impossible to do so. You're attracting a crowd and you're affecting public safety, and you need to understand that. So the signs are affecting public safety. Take over from there.
Well, apparently what you are saying to them and they are saying back to you is creating danger. How many bottles or objects have you been hit with?
I lost count. And it's only because you guys weren't around. Okay, we have video of that.
We don't have enough people to be with everybody at the festival.
And we're not saying...
I can't assign a couple officers to each group. You need to bring your people out, and we're going to leave.
What happens is when they apply for a permit, they should have realized this would happen.
Who applied for it?
Well, when the city of Dearborn allows a permit, then
for the festival?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you know,
I mean, this is common sense. We did try to contact the sheriff. Okay. The problem is he didn't respond. We did try to contact the city attorney.
I believe that the sheriff's office sent you a written response.
No. In fact, my attorney said they did not. And so what happened, the reason why this is going on now is because of what happened last year. What happened last year is you allowed it to escalate into this. And so you guys just lost a lawsuit on free speech and you want to do it again.
Okay. We need to leave.
Well, I don't think we're gonna go anywhere.
Why don't you get us the bullpen that we asked for in the email?
Okay, well that's a free speech zone, and the Chamber of Commerce decided that they did not want a free speech zone.
You're here to protect our rights.
I'm here to protect everybody.
And keep safety. Get us a bullpen.
And where were you when the bottles were flying?
I was grabbing people.
Well, no, there was officers that actually turned the other way. I mean, they didn't want to get involved.
I grabbed the well, come on, we need to go before we end up with that.
What's the problem?
The problem is that one of your people is going to get hurt, or one of the crowd's going to get hurt, or one of my officers is going to get hurt. You know that this is just going to escalate until it's...
well, if you have a couple of uniforms, like
I don't have a couple of uniforms. There's 100,000 people who come to this festival, and I got about 25 to 30 officers.
Well, just 2 officers. If you think it's a threat, so you're going to jeopardize free speech. You want to stop.
I'm not trying to jeopardize free speech.
That's what you're doing. Keep going, please. That's what you're doing.
I'm not trying to jeopardize free speech at all. I'm not. The whole festival is free speech.
Let me ask you this: if we don't leave, are we going to get arrested?
Probably.
I just need to know yes or no. That's like me probably saying yes, we'll stay or not.
No, probably we will cite you off. Yes. If that's what you want, I mean, I don't understand what good that does.
I just need to know if I'm going to be arrested or not. If you just thought it was a good idea that we walk away. If you're telling me that we're going to get arrested, that's what I need to know. Well, are you telling me that we're going to get arrested?
I'm not telling you they're going to be arrested, but you know, you are a danger to the public safety. You're disorderly.
I would assume, 200 angry Muslim children throwing bottles would be more of a threat than a few guys with signs.
All right, hang on a second.
He's rewarding riotous behavior. Yes. If they make us leave now, they reward riotous behavior.
You need to leave, Mr. Israel.
Again, I just want to make it happen.
Yes.
So if we don't leave, you're saying we will.
If you don't leave, we're going to cite you for disorder. You're creating a disturbance in the festival. I mean, look at your people here. Look at, this is crazy. And let's go.
You're just rewarding them for riotous behavior. You're rewarding riotous behavior. You're teaching that crowd that if they riot, then they're rewarded for their rioting by kicking out the people they don't want. You should have let those missionaries pass out gospel tracts. Should have let those missionaries pass out gospel tracts. Now you've created a situation in your city where all they have to do is create a riot and they'll get whatever they want. They'll get whatever they want by causing a riot. That's what you're teaching them. They can't spare 2 cops to stay with us for the day, but they can spare 14 of them to take us out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm sure they need 4 mounted police to protect the cotton candy stand.
I came to Dearborn and all I got was a bloody forehead.
That is amazing. It's actually made a cross.
Now, if you're a Catholic, I realize you're going to see the Virgin Mary in there. It's just an angry Muslim.
That'll be in the bruise in the back of your head. The bruise in the back of your head is the Virgin Mary. He's giving you flashers.
No, someone's going before them.
No, they ain't talking about the plate, brother. I don't think. Oh, he's blocking us in front. He's got us blocked.
Yeah, he is pointing us over. That's the feeling. That's the plate trying to find in.
Yeah. Creating another disturbance, apparently. Okay, they kick us out of the festival because they can't spare any police officers to protect us. And here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Any in front? Yeah. How many in front? How many in front? All right, that's at least 12. That's at least 12 cops they can spare to pull us over during a police escort, but they can't spare 2 to protect us during the festival. Oh, I'm sure before we get back to the car, they'll figure out something else they can arrest us for.
Hey,
arrest us
too many people in one vehicle.
Arrest us for being on the receiving end of rocks and garbage. We've got a law against being hit by garbage and boxes and pieces of concrete in this city.
Dearborn Mayor John O'Reilly is here. Wayne County Sheriff Benny Napoleon. Wayne County Commissioner Gary Warrenchuk. Although he is not here, he has done an outstanding job representing this district for longer than just about anybody. John Dingell. We knew the changes that we believed in wouldn't necessarily come quickly, but we understood that if we were determined, that we could overcome any obstacle, that we could meet any challenge. And in just 3 years, because of what you did in 2008, we've begun to see what change looks like.
Seeing the Muslims demonstrate here in Florida with their hate and send the Jews back to the ovens and this kind of thing.
All right, I just got back from downtown Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's Tuesday, December 30th, 2008. I spent about 2 or 3 hours with 200 or 300 Palestinians in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Just an unbelievable world that without Jehovah God, without the love of Christ. So, at any rate, that
الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين سيدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط عليه وسلم تكبير 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 حياك للدين مجدة حياك للدين مجدة أوجرك من الدماء أوجرك من الدماء إسرائيل أنا أطلع أرض سلام just a different Islam Hitler على إسرائيل أرض سلام just a different Islam And we need to try harder as Muslims to educate the people about what Islam really is so that they can appreciate the beauty of it. Because once people really understand the real beauty of Islam, they will have no choice but to accept it because they'll realize that it's part of their nature.
Olga was used to this Islamic terrorism. It wasn't new to her in Russia, but we come to America and she felt at peace and security for the first time in her life. And then 9/11 devastated her. Not even safe in America. So, but the Russian people were taught how they were sacrificing to bring socialism. But the people that were being dominated by the Russian government, moving in their puppet governments, developed hatred for Russians all over. But, and so much, one other ignorance. I have a friend sent me this pamphlet about donating money to the poor Jews in Russia that they could go to Jerusalem or go to Israel. A little secret. Russia's changed. Right now, Putin would invite the Amish back from South America. He wants strong families and Christian values. But in the early 90s, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, it was a different story. The only thing they wanted was Orthodox Christianity. And one of the worst enemies was these home Christians, and the Anabaptists and Baptists had been secretly building under communism. You know, I was teaching physics in a Buffalo, New York suburb, and all of a sudden we had a whole church full of Russians moved into our village, in the township there. And I had Russian students. They were all Baptists there. And what I later found out is Russia would not let the Jews go to Israel. The Jewish had received free education. They were holding high positions of whether accounting or lawyers or administrators, doctors. They didn't want to lose them. And they didn't want to lose the wealth that they had. The pictures and the gold and the things that had accumulated in the Russian community there. Well, here, this network is soliciting money for that. I learned about not-for-profit organizations when I worked with the Unitarian Church. I was chairman of a 17-church charity in Buffalo, New York, and learned a lot of lessons. Be careful. They're out to make money for themselves. Social workers making themselves jobs. But that's a whole nother distraction that I'd like to confront another time. In the background here, understand the Jews were in the top echelons of the Communist Party, and they grabbed a lot when it broke up. The Jews are basically the wealthiest class in Russia, and owning football teams in Europe and all over, whatever. They're swimming in money, some of them. At any rate, this in the early 90s, that all these Baptists showed up. The reason was the United States had asked Russia, what do we need, trying to help Israel, what do we need to do to get you to let the Jews immigrate to Israel? And at that time, this is the early 90s, they said, you take our Baptists and Pentecostals and we'll let the Jews go to Israel. So the United States ended up with about 1.5 million very good Christian citizens. They have a tremendous reputation for integrity and hard work. They're not on welfare, and they learn English right away. And thankful to be in America. In closing, I want you to understand I've had Muslim friends while at the university. I didn't understand Islam, and it was hard for them to become my friend, but we worked together in the science and engineering library. But don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. But there are many good Muslims. The biggest threat to these good Muslims are those that follow the Quran. And wherever Islam becomes the dominating, it's the fundamentalists that take over, because they are, by the Quran, Surah 9, they are to enforce by beheading and everything else, terror. And that first comes, like in Russia where I live, in that area, they're killing peaceful imams. They're killing Muslims for not following the Quran with that hate for anything that stands in the way of the theocracy of world domination that is preached in the Quran and has justified all of this murder ever since 600 years after Christ. So please take the time and trouble to learn something about this, and let's hope we can find some way to help Muslims, especially those that have a different nature than the jihadist ready to kill for the world domination of Islam. They're in danger. I don't know the answer. I know that the modern women's liberation with daycare and resentment of having to breastfeed and so forth is a worse crime against humanity. I was so pleased to see the United Arab Emirates this week made a law that women have to breastfeed for 2 years. If they're not able to breastfeed, they've got to get a wet nurse. God bless them. The needs of children, it's predestination. Autism in America has gone from 1 in 1,700 when I was born to 1 in 55 boys last year. And if you say it's because they need a mother that will breastfeed for 3 to 5 years and stay in the home until the child is 6 years old or more to create a secure, loving environment, you'll lose your job. My daughter works as a teacher, and the superintendent of schools made a comment to the board. The board is dominated by women. He said how important it is for the women to stay in the home with the children. And one of the women board members took that as an anti-feminist statement and got him dismissed as superintendent. So let's wake up and make it a better world by caring for children. They are predestined by what we give them, especially the first 2 years in that mammalian nursing bond. Thank you. I need to add one more insight here. It is an animal level thing to give that mammalian nursing bond to a child. Girls who are raised without that, they are not able to give it to their children. Just like you take a female puppy away from its mother too soon. When it has pups, it doesn't know how to care for them. It isn't intellectual. You're not going to read it in a book. It's an animal level thing that happens during the first 2 to 5 years of life to give the little girls that ability to be caring mothers. Even if intellectually they want to be a good mother, if they were deprived in their infancy and early childhood, they don't have the animal level ability. Woman across the street from my mother was so stressed, the baby was suffering from vomiting and diarrhea, calling it a colicky baby. It used to be marasmus. And the doctor said, can you find somebody who's not stressed that can help care for the baby? And my mother took care of the baby during the summer, and the baby began to thrive. The woman wanted to be a good mother, but she was deprived of the mammalian level care herself, so she didn't have that animal ability in her. Wake up. Thank you. Goodbye.